Year of the Mecha, enters the third dimension.
The third
Well,
dimension.
yeah, quite literally. It is now, we're now going to be getting into today the first 3D mecha game on the list. Or if this was originally going to be Mecha Month, as I was envisioning like last year at some point, this would have been the first game to start it. But yes, I'm back, and joining me is my third guest, a very technical and talented streamer and time-displaced survivor of the Y2K apocalypse, Millennium Cyborg.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Yes, I'm happy to be here. I am an enjoyer of mecha content in many forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is quite an appropriate one for me to guest on.
Yeah.
I don't have massive amounts of experience with this series, but it's one I've always meant to dive more deeply into. I first played it. I actually first saw it in a real arcade. The first original Virtual way back, and it's a very eye-catching game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a standout Sega Model 2 classic, to
Mm,
say the least. And because of kind of the importance of this game and the fact that it is indeed originally an arcade game, today's stream is going to be covering a couple of versions. Starting obviously with a version that represents what the game was actually like in the arcades, though not actually running through the one Sega Model 2 arcade emulator that you can find on the internet.
So you said that you had some quite a lot to say about the setup for this.
Yeah, the fact that we're going with the PS3 version of this game running through
Oh, that's right.
RPCS3, which fortunately, you know, emulate obviously like this emulator's been making a lot of progress in all sorts of areas. You know, a lot of number of games run decently enough on it. Fortunately, I found like the games that Sega put out like on PSN that were just ports of their Model 2 games,
Mm,
unsurprisingly, run fantastic. So
excellent.
so like it's not just for this. If for some reason you have a hankering to play like VF2 or Fighting Vipers, this is also a good option. But the reason I went for
Mm,
this is because the Model 2 emulator, Nebula, I believe it's called, like, it does run the game, but there's an issue with how it handles the inputs because, like, anyone with passing familiarity of Virtual knows about, like, its control scheme, and that it is about using, like, two sticks, each with, like, a button and trigger on the sticks. They're digital, not analog, and for whatever reason, even though the Model 2 emulator lets me like map every single input, including each cardinal direction of the sticks, uh, the the inputs you do for jumping and guarding, like basically pulling the sticks apart or pushing them
yeah.
inwards, it does not recognize it. It instead seems to confuse it as I am trying to do those two separate inputs like independently of each other.
Right.
Like, they think I'm also trying to move right and left at the same time, but don't seem to get in their heads that that's supposed to correlate with, no, you're supposed to jump.
Yeah.
But PS3
Key
version,
aspect of the control. Mm.
yeah, PS3 version through emulator with keyboard mappings that I then have hooked up through, have mapped to Joy-2-Key because I have a Saturn controller to USB adapter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know they made those.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can find a whole lot of different like adapters made to convert old console controllers to USB, and it works. This one's handy too
Mm.
because like it has like a switch to either be X input or direct input.
I've got one for GameCube, and that works very nicely with Dolphin
Mm-hmm.
for GameCube games. But oh, and I've got a PS2 one. I mean, I've had PS2 ones
Oh
for
yeah, I remember
ages.
having a PS2 one ages ago. Like
Yeah.
there was a point where I Like, I originally got that because I wanted to use, like, my old PS2 dance pads on it for Step Mania, but it wouldn't
Right.
recognize it. But it recognized my DualShock, so I was like, well, I can at least play, like, I can emulate PS1 games with this, I guess.
I got one because I can't remember which one it was exactly. It was a Street Fighter to 20th anniversary or something. Special edition controllers
Oh.
that I wanted to use. Quite nice 6-button pads. That was for PS2. So I was able to use those on PC.
Yeah. Yeah, it's handy, to say the least.
Should I be
So,
getting game audio over Discord at this point?
you aren't?
I don't think I am, no.
Weird, hold on. I thought I'd added... Of course there still had to be some amount of scuff. Just a minute. Weird. Hold the... Okay, come on, what the hell? Yeah, that is bizarre, because, like, I have the PS3 emulator added to, like, audio output source that's supposed to capture stuff that gets output through the through OBS. It's kind of like a weird loop. That is bizarre. Hold on. Freaking technical difficulties.
Hey, Ben, hi.
Sup,
Good to see
Ben?
you.
Okay, just a second. Yeah, that is absolutely bizarre. Hold on, let me try re-adding it, if
Mm.
possible.
I'll also try stop watching in Discord and start it again, because...
No, because, like, I'm looking at the audio mixer, and under, like, the audio slider where, like, it should be saying that's, like, where the audio's coming from, it's, like, not registering on there. Let me try again. Oh, do you hear now?
No.
You don't? Oh, Ben hears it at least. So yeah, it's coming through the streams now. Like, I'm just kind of, like, switching through, like, the menu.
I think I can hear your controller
Oh,
through the microphone, but I can't hear the game. I'll try stop watching and then
Mm.
watching again.
Well, we'll just let the attract demo play until you hear a sound, and we can proceed. You're still not getting any?
No.
Oh. Oh well. It was bound to happen that we would have to, like, figure out some scuff for, like, this series. After the first 2 weeks going pretty well.
Stream volume is full on my side.
Mm-hmm.
Not muted. I've had this issue before when using Discord in the browser, but never through the app like I am now.
Strange, yeah. Whatever, we'll take the time we can to get it solved. At least let people, you know, just watch the arcade opening.
So on your side, it now looks like it's going through.
Yeah.
I will try restarting Discord.
All right.
I'll be right back.
Certainly. Handy visual graphics. Just showing off, like, basic controls. Because it's an arcade game, you gotta be able to do something. Do something to, like, teach people how the fuck you play this game before they put money in it. Sup, Kuma?
Yeah, unfortunately, I tried everything I can on my side.
Weird. It might also be just something with, I don't know, maybe doing this on, like, a PC platform, just because, like, the past 2 weeks, like, I've been, like, playing them, like, on a console, which goes through, like, a game capture, like, video card, capture card device. So I don't know.
Is it like, could it be the echo cancellation in Discord or something?
I have no idea. This is so bizarre.
By Sega.
Well, I don't know. I guess maybe like for now, just because of like how long we've been sitting on here. If it's
we can just keep going.
Yeah, it's just fine to like kind of keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and oh yeah, and I would just also check. I guess like the other thing I'm using with this is to also just double check audio levels to kind of make sure that neither of us are getting drowned out. Adjusted some things that should be good now, I think. All right.
Cool.
Excellent. We got our choice of 8 Virtuaroids.
I love how different all the designs are as well.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna show off multiple throughout like the course of this stream, but considering this is the first run, it makes sense to go with the main character. Good old Temjin. Gundam ikimasu!
So he's got a Sega Saturn looking device on his back. And
Yeah.
the CD flying out when he does some of the attacks.
Yeah, that's basically like that's the funny thing about like the Virtuaroids, like at least like I think when it comes to like the first 2 games, this and Oratorio Tangram, is that they're powered by the contemporary Sega Saturn Sega system that they are on. So it's Saturn's for the first game, and it's Dreamcast for the sequel for Oratorio Tangram, which that's a hell of a game. And also, do not judge me for playing this on very easy. I want to show off most, if not all, of this arcade playthrough.
I never judge people for the difficulty, really.
Yeah. And here we are.
This is like I was thinking earlier. This style of game, just an arena, one player versus one player game, you don't get so much these days. Back in the day, it was. I feel like I played a lot of games in this sort of style, whether 2D or 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But they just didn't survive to the present day. Now it's all massively multiplayer or much larger arenas or.
Yeah, especially just ones where it's like kind of like being very mecha focused, because I think you could point to there being other like attempts at doing like 3D arena type fighting games, but they're always like way more anime, stuff where it's just based more like on like the popular like anime franchises of the time.
Right.
Not really something where it's like going for like something that is like this kind of 3D, but also very deliberate. Because with all like the dashing that we're doing, important thing to note, there is recovery time coming out of like your dashes. You can cancel them, but you cannot cancel out of them if you have like fired your weapon.
Using the twin sticks really seems like the best way to play this game as well. It makes it feel very...
Absolutely.
All the moves feel very dynamic.
Man, I remember the Sega Arcade at the Luxor Casino had a 3-story tall Tenjin statue with an Egyptian headdress.
Wow.
Fuck, that sounds rad. Yeah. And, like, just the extra great part as well about, like, why the twin stick kind of control setup works for Virtual-On is that it's not just for movement, but it's, like, when you do directional inputs combined with any of, like, the trigger presses for your weapons, it actually kind of changes the nature of how you use those. Like, for instance, like, I press it, both sticks inward and then toss a bomb. I do, like, a high overhead, or, like, I toss, like... It's basically... Oh, fuck, I got distracted as I was trying to explain shit. But it's the sort of thing where, like, that's a move where it can be useful if there's a bit of raised terrain in front of you and you want, like, a high throw trajectory to get over it. Yeah, alright, we're gonna get back to it. Man, and this is on very easy, I should add. Sega was not forgiving in the 90s.
This does so much aesthetically that I enjoy, like having the launch sequence and the repair sequence and the wireframe view of the mech.
Yeah.
Like that you're about to face. The choice of fonts and colors, and then the Sega blue skies, you know, the really
Blue Sky
colors.
Sega, it's a strong aesthetic, and I'm still doing terrible at this. It's funny, like, it's always around, like, the 4th match or so in any of these games where it just gets insane. Like, I know I gave up, like, on, like, the 4th fight around there when I tried playing, like, the arcade mode of like, BF2. Because it's like, after you fight Shun-Di, it's just like, that's where you have to deal with Leon and Paichan, and then they're just like, fuck you. Okay, I'm gonna actually try and focus. If I can. Ah, fuck. Ah, fuck. Well, did a little bit better.
Get there.
Like, if I could at the very least get to kind of like the halfway point of like the arcade mode, that would at least be nice. Because there is like a noticeable like transition point that the game like puts you through. Like, at least as far as lore implications, I guess you could call it, because unsurprisingly for an arcade game, there is lore to Virtual-On.
I was going to ask about lore, actually.
Yeah, I don't have like most of like the details of it offhand, but like it's one of those, it's almost a bit like, I feel tapping into like the Last Starfighter-esque, where it's like they take like the arcade game kind of conceit of like you playing Virtual-On, and that like you're not just playing a game with these like Virtuaroids. It's like, no, you're actually like taking part like in like remote controlling like these robots for like an important mission.
Right.
Ah. Shit. Ah. Oh, fuck. Those shockwaves linger so long. Yeah.
So what are you able to like guard if you guard the rockets and things? How effective is that?
So guarding, at least like from what I recall, like the guard animation really only triggers like if you're in close proximity to the enemy, because like its primary function is for guarding melee. Like it kind of doesn't really do much against other projectiles. And I'm also like doing not that good of a job of kind of like demonstrating at the same time like the or maybe I am right now. I should, Oh, maybe I'll actually get him this time.
Doing better, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you got to remember as well, like, the important thing. There we go. Bomb finished him off. I stopped trying to be fancy and just, like, going all over the place with dashes when I was like, no, I should be more deliberate and actually try and match the proper angle. Because that's an important thing with Virtuaron's gameplay and why it has, like, the depth and longevity that it has as a series. Mostly when it comes to the sequels, but like, we're not to any of those yet. The idea is due to a concept that I believe is called vector dashing. Because the important thing with this is that, like, most of your fights in Virtuaron are fought at range. You know, you have projectile weapons. Melee is, like, a contextual thing when you happen to get close enough. And so because of that, like, all your projectiles are literally projectiles. There's nothing instantaneous. They have travel time. They have trajectories. So I made my first Bulbasaur Balbas bow because I am that guy. Yeah. That's a pretty good one. But the idea with vector dashing is that, like, it's like the beauty of it, like, as like a mechanic, a game concept in this is that it is entirely based on mathematics. Right. Because it's about matching, like, the proper dash direction so that you minimize, like, the amount of shots that'll possibly miss from trying to hit a moving target.
Right.
B-Man with the follow. Thank you very much, man.
I did hear the alert.
Okay. And that's... Alright. And... Okay, come on. Sometimes you just gotta...
So the vector dashing is in order for your own attacks or your own projectiles to hit?
Yeah. It's twofold. It's to guarantee that your projectiles will hit, as well as guarantee that your enemy's projectiles will not hit you. And I got so damn close right there, I gotta say. And it's the sort of thing where it's based on choosing the correct angle based on, like, the angle that the enemy is going to dash relative to, like, your facing view. So it's the sort of thing where, like, if one's dashing, like, straight ahead of where you're facing and you dash directly in front of them, yeah, you're going to hit them, but they could also turn around during that dash and hit you back, and you're both going to trade damage pretty much equally. If you both dash to the side, like, you go to the left and they go to their left, like, it's a lot easier, I think, to also convey, even though it's not in this game. I've played it in other games that have a similar thing with, like, a hard lock-on, where you have two enemies circling around each other, like, literally going in a circle, and the result is, like, no bullets hit at all.
Yeah.
So the best way to think of it is to try and match their dash trajectory by going with a perpendicular angle of your own. And the ultimate thing you should try and go for in those situations as well is make sure they are in a position where they are trapped into having to retaliate while backdashing if that's their only option, as well as not backdash yourself, because that's usually for kind of weak retreating attacks that aren't very effective at offense. And this is just all entirely in the context of what this game has to offer as far as, like, dash mechanics, because you dash in a direction, it is explicitly that. As I mentioned before, you can, stop your dash, like, mid-direction, but that's only if you do not fire a weapon. So there's heavy commitment in the first Virtuaron, like, definitely more than there is in any of the other games after this.
I'm trying to imagine the vectors in my head for what you've described. I think I'd need a diagram.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's like old like guides on game facts and the like that actually do kind of like explain kind of like the concept, and like that's more or less like the core theory where it's like it's best to match dash directions in a way that are at the very least like if not in the initial dash, then certainly during like the mid to end point of the dash, because that's when like your positions are completely different from where you both started moving. So yeah, again, think about it this way, like, you know, let's say the one that we just fought, you know, moved to the left first, you know, consistently, and I instead decided to dash forward. Like, even at the very beginning of, like, the dash forward, I could have just, like, pressed the fire button and I would be shooting at the, I guess, roughly 45-ish degree angle. But, you know, like, if I activated it, like, midway through the dash, especially where I would get to the point of basically lining up along the same line that the enemy is dashing towards, then I could just, you know, I would then like fire, and my shots would go pretty much straight in the direction of where they're moving.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you're seeing how like the math behind it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's the beauty of it, and that's all without like mid-direction dash changing and things like that, you know, that later games got into. This game at the very least, or at least like this version of Virtual-On, the handy thing that it has is a little training mode, which just, you know, it modifies parameters in the arcade ROM to make it possible. So you can like choose, you know, what sort of like Virtuaroid you wanna play as well as the enemy, even the stage. Like, that's these last cool. Two are random.
Is there slow mode?
Yes, slow is this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely been like a handy feature, but that was like, well, not handy. I guess it's like an interesting feature, but like I always feel weird. It always feels weird trying to use it, you know? Because like it's not, because yeah, it lets you kind of see and study a bit more clearly how things like different vector dashes line up, but it's not really that useful to learning how best to play the game unless you're actually practicing at full speed. But yeah, let's go ahead and just try this. Show off like another unit, and oh god, it's this asshole. This at least is like, of the original 8, this is definitely one of my favorite of Farmed. Because he's got Tong Furs.
Do they have completely different sets of attacks?
Yes, they do. Though, like, although their main weapons kind of like fall into roughly the same categories. Right trigger weapon is supposed to be like your, oh, nice, landed it. That's one of the reasons why I love a Farmed, is that, like, his dash goes real far. Love me some Raiden. He was slow, but with good positioning, you were brutal. Yeah, that's true. Raiden's a good, like, heavy character to play as. But a Farmed I do like a lot because of just the high dash speed, and, like, the shotgun's pretty good, especially if you're doing side dashes and you get, like, that spread. It kind of helps with landing your attacks better. And again, he has Tong Furs, which, yeah, they're supposed to be Tonfas. But, I mean, I love Tonfas in games, in general.
You know what? I think I have quite liked various Tonfa using characters in the past as well. Like, in Killer Instinct, oh, it's been too long, I can't remember the character's name, but...
Oh, trying to... I mean, my initial thought was like Orchid, but I don't think those were Tonfas. Yeah, I think they might have just been regular Nightsticks. Yeah. But like my main love for Tonfa. I did not know that
there was a difference.
Yeah, my main love for Tonfas, though, as anyone that knows me well can attest, is entirely because of Ninja Gaiden 2 on the 360. Yeah, the Tonfas in that game are absolutely fantastic weapons. They are so brutal. Nice. traded bombs, but I got out just in time. Yeah, and it's just like the animations and all that are real cool.
Yeah, Black Orchid or Orchid in Kill Instinct, and then Talim in Soul Calibur.
Yeah, that's right. Talon did use those. I'm also gonna switch to one more character. Let's see. Oh yeah. Since Ben actually brought it up, and because like I'm admittedly not that good with like heavy characters in any sort of like game in general, but I might as well show it off just for the sake of it. I believe the katakana on that should be Raiden. Yep. Yeah. Although, okay, so here's like a difference. Like the center weapon that Raiden has isn't a melee weapon. It's just two big fuck off lasers.
I love how big some of the missiles and lasers are.
Yeah. But yeah, like if you're very good at like reading enemy positions and like seeing the right opportunity, not getting like too impatient, like you can absolutely like deal some huge damage. Like so. Yeah, just really good design. Yeah, area control is absolutely like the fantastic use for the lasers. And not what I just did there, where I try and use it first thing because I'm kind of an impatient asshole who's not that good at Virtual On. I just happen to be one of those fortunate people that happens to have like the twin sticks to play these games. Hell, it's not just one stick I have two. Which, oh man, that's a story. It in fact involves Ben, partially. Might as well actually kind of describe it as I'm kind of messing around with like some of these Virtuaroids before we move on to the other version of this game. But basically, yeah, it pretty much all started with Bentar just because I've been like talking to him about like mentioning all the sort of mecha games and whatnot that I'm into, and also just kind of the desire to get like some of these like specific controllers or peripherals that help like with playing these games. And then just DM'd me kind of out of the blue that was like, hey, so I checked through the stuff I have in my storage, and apparently I have a Dreamcast Virtual On stick still in the box, slightly used, but like still in very good condition. I could send it to you for free if you want. And I was like, huh. And the thing was, I kind of sat on it for a while because roughly around the same time, a bit before that, I had won a Yahoo Auctions Japan listing for a Saturn Virtual On stick. But the thing was, it was in addition to some other things I had ordered from Yahoo Auctions at the time, where I was also in the middle of moving between places. And some of those packages from Japan took a while to get to where I was now because of, for whatever reason, despite registering like a change of address with like U.S. Postal Services over here, I guess like the mail carriers that would be like delivering stuff from like imports and stuff like that didn't get the memo. So they went to my old address and got bounced back. And then I had assumed that they were lost, and they until they told me, hey, these packages got returned. Let us know which address is correct and we'll send it again. But by this time, I had basically written off the Saturn stick and was like, yeah, I'll hit up Bentai about, seeing about getting that Dreamcast stick sent over. Because at the very least, I can use that for Oratorio Tangram, which is definitely like the game I'm most interested in. But then I got the message after the Dreamcast stick arrived that like, hey, so that Saturn stick got sent back to us. Please update your address to let us know it's which is correct. And then I did. And now I have two sticks.
Great.
Yeah, it actually saves me the trouble of needing to get like one of those very old converter like adapters where the idea was that you could like plug in Saturn controllers into a Dreamcast, because like those exist, but because of how sought after they are, they're very expensive.
It sounds like a very obscure and expensive piece of hardware.
Yeah, I mean it's useful to say the least, you know? Especially because I would say that as far as money value, if you have both systems, it's probably better to get a Saturn Twin Stick, because there are more games on Saturn that use the Twin Stick than on Dreamcast.
What other games are there?
There is Gungriffon 2, which is one of the games that will be played on this series. 2 of the 3 Gundam side story games for Saturn, the Blue Destiny, have support for the Twin Stick. And that's as far... And then, of course, there's Virtuaroids Original. So there's 4. But... And that's just for official support. Unofficial support, there's technically 1 more now, and it's a game called Bulk Slash, because some dudes did the fan translation for it. You know, like, translating it to English, redubbing the voice lines in English, and just to add a little bit extra to the mecha fantasy of that game, they were like, here, you can use the Twin Sticks. Now that's 5 games total.
Amazing work.
Yep. And yeah, as expected, Bulk Slash also going to be on Year of the Mecha. In fact, next month, for that matter. I love that, like, the wind pose was partially taken up by me just being knocked flat on my face. But yeah, this is Viper, whose stage is like the second in the arcade mode and has by far like my favorite track in the entire game. She's Lost Control. You might have recognized it as well if you listened to the pre-stream. It's the good the music choice that I went with. But yeah, like this is obviously like the kind of unit that has very good air control and can like stay up in the air for quite a while, raining death from above. But armor is otherwise very weak, you know? And doesn't have like the hardest hitting weapons.
I like the thruster design.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Anyway, I think with Tenjin, a farmed Raiden, and Viper 2, yeah, we basically covered half of like the main cast. So I think that's actually a good time to switch on over. Have you shown off Fei Yen? No, but we will momentarily in the Saturn version.
Ooh.
All right, do you at least get audio from here this time?
I do, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, I think that confirms it then. Like, it's probably just a weird thing with just using like a game capture source. Oh yeah, because like because just game capture doesn't create its own audio source in the mixer. I think that's the thing. Whereas if you use like a video capture device, it absolutely does. So
right, yeah.
That must be the reason. Okay. I'll probably have to, I don't know, maybe come up with like another solution the next time I need to do something with that. Or maybe, actually, no, screw it. I think that means more than anything that the next time I have to do screen share with a PC application, I should just share the PC application itself. I think that's the actual solution. But that just means more tedium on my part. Anyway, just also gotta get getting the Twin Stick unplugged from the PC and getting it ready and moved over to the Saturn. You could also take the time to appreciate as well just all the games I have to choose from on my Saturn ODE. It's a lot. Including CG Portrait series for Virtua Fighter, which technically aren't games. They're just, they're a weird thing, to say the least.
I've heard of those because I've been doing occasional dives into like the history of CG characters around the Y2K era.
Yeah.
Like late 90s, early 2000s. So I did come across those.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely of that vibe, just like 3D renders of the Virtua Fighter 2 cast. And it's hilarious too, just how like non-games they are, that like even with like Saturn prices going up over the years, I always see those CG portrait series being so consistently cheap, because who the fuck would put high value on something like that? All right, but let's boot up this game proper. Who am I thinking of selling a Saturn stuff? I mean, like, if that's what you want to do, certainly go for it. It's definitely more practical in the long run to have like an ODE installed into a Saturn, really. So yeah, games courteous enough to let us choose. Hey, you want to use the regular control pad like a chump, or do you want to use the twin stick like a Chad? We know what we're going with. Look at that. And I'm actually going to sit on the start screen for a little while, because like all the Saturn ports, there's like a pre-rendered CG opening for this, much like VF2, nice. Fighting Vipers and whatnot, they all have it. True motion.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Good old Tenjin. And there's the robot magical girl, Fei Yin, who's also Hatsune Miku. We didn't know that until like 2013, when that became canon in one of the Super Robot Wars games.
Really? I didn't know it was canon.
Yeah, it became that in one of the 3DS games, I think it was. Like, they had another Virtual-On rep, but they decided that like to give it a weird like extra bit of story to it, where like Fei Yin was housing the soul of Hatsune Miku and then eventually awakened into Miku, and then it just has her colors for the rest of the game.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice follow-up to the fact that I think it was Alpha 3 that actually had a Virtual-On representation in there already, with like Tenjin and regular Fei Yin. I guess they decided to do like an extra fun thing with Sega, since they've been since Sega's the one behind the Project Diva games.
So what I know about the lore so far is the player is actually in the lore controlling a real robot in a fight through the game console or arcade cabinet. And
yes.
2, Hatsune Miku is real inside Fei Yin.
Correct. Hatsune Miku had some rough times before she got discovered. Yeah. And even then, you might say she probably still had some rough times afterwards. Like, I don't know how big she was on that whole gig she did with Domino's. Yeah, and this is just to let you know, like, yeah, you can still switch over to the Saturn pad if you want, and then rebind all the keys if you want. But we don't need to. The stick, meanwhile, is like, if you're using the twin stick, you don't need to remap anything. You know what you're getting into. Alright. So let's start working through like the other half of the cast while we're at it. Might as well start with her. Fei Yin is quite the interesting character in the game, because we've already seen like the different sort of roles and specialties that the first 4 Virtuaroids that we showed off, like what they're capable of. Fei Yin, meanwhile, has like a very interesting gimmick to her. And it's one that you're not really bound to get if you're one that plays the game perfectly.
Get ready.
I just like, her magical girl robot theme.
Oh yeah.
I don't know anything more about her.
I mean, I definitely appreciate just the fact that we can have like that in Japan, giant robots don't have to conform to exactly the same type of thing. They can be anything, as long as they're big. But yeah, this is how it runs on Saturn. It's at half the frame rate, and kind of chunky.
I think if I had this on Saturn at the time, I would have been extremely happy.
Yeah. Anyway, here's the gimmick. We have engaged hyper mode. She has turned orange.
Oh,
and that
wow.
happens after you have taken, like, 50% health. If I can just... There we go. Got it just in time.
So what does hyper mode do apart from change your color?
It's primarily just like a buff to like all her stats. Like I think it's like just like better like speed, attack power. I don't think it like does anything to like drastically improve her defenses or anything. And it's just like it's the most this game is willing to get away with something resembling a comeback mechanic. Yeah, it just blows hearts, and it hurts you. Yeah, Magical Girl Mecha, underappreciated as a concept.
Definitely.
Something that many people probably scoff at, thinking, how dare they? Yep, yeah, Ben confirms, like, none of the other mecha in this game, or I think the rest of the series for this matter, have like the hyper mode mechanic. That is very much a Fei Yin thing. And I imagine part of it is because maybe they had an expectation of the kind of people that would be into playing as Fei Yin, because she's like the closest, like, because this is, you know, it's a mecha game, but it is just as much a fighting game. There's always the fighting game character that is the requisite cute one. So this is like the closest they get, and they probably wanted to like throw a bone to people that might just be playing her because of looks and not because she is the best.
Like me.
And me as well, I guess, for that matter, considering how well I'm doing. But yeah, just look how quick she fucking runs. Oh, fuck. I might still end up dying.
I do always tend to prefer very mobile characters.
Oh, got it just barely.
Nice.
Yeah, Fate stage music is pretty good. I forget which one it is though. If we're not able to get to it in arcade, then hopefully I could plug in a second control pad and like maybe use that to load it up. But at the very least, I think as soon as I start dying and like getting game overs, I'll switch to like the remaining characters. And yeah, and even going back quickly to like the vector dashing concept, like even if it's like still fairly difficult trying to like properly line up attacks, it helps to know that like another good alternative is to like just pay attention to where your enemy's moving and actually focus on hitting them when they're most vulnerable after a dash, you know? Like when they're in their recovery. Buddy and I had plenty of epic fights. She was Fei Yin and I was Raiden. Total opposite fighting styles. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's not letting me switch over. Oh, well. Well. But also, I think, yeah, I think the part that's surprising me as well, like, even with the technical performance of this port being not as good as it is in the arcade, playing this with the twin stick still feels real good. Which has me curious about, like... It has me curious about, like, a particular thing that, like, I'm not sure is if it's something that maybe was, like, a placebo effect according to someone, or is actually true, but I might be able to test it out once we kind of, like, load in the multiplayer. Since, you know, like, I don't have a second twin stick, but, like, a second Saturn pad works just well enough. Alright, can I redeem myself against Balbas Bow?
I believe in you.
You can do the thing.
Get ready.
Okay. Ah, fuck. Come on. Nice, okay. When in doubt, use hearts. Use the power of love. And yeah, she has also, like, a decent floating ability, kind of similar to Viper 2.
Do the heart attacks home in better than the other attacks, or is it just my imagination?
Oh my god, that...
Wow.
Wow, yeah, the heart beam definitely gets a huge buff in hyper mode. Oh, but here we go. We're now at the halfway point. Yes, we got it. Jagarandi, or however the fuck you say it. The mini-boss. Yeah, because besides the main 8, Virtualon also has, like, 2 boss enemies. I don't know if I'll be able to beat it, but I'll try. As we're fighting in front of the Stone-like from Radiant Silvergun. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. That one was orange. I just see, like, an octahedron like that, and I just immediately assume the worst. Oh my god, just look at how much damage that was. Fuck, that was
Ow.
2 hits! Holy shit, man. Does it let me re-challenge at least? Yes, it does.
Get ready.
Oh my god.
Oh my god!
Fucking 75%! What the hell is this boss?
Do you have any invulnerability when dashing? I'm guessing no.
No. If projectiles hit you, they hit you. That's just how it is. Again, it's like a major point about, like, you have to get the right angle. Oh, there it is. Hyper mode saved my ass yet again. Yeah. Yeah, the fact that she's, like, the cute robot of this series, it's no fucking wonder they made her the only playable unit with a comeback mechanic. They did not want the fans to be discouraged. Rank D. Oh, that's to be expected. So yeah, and this is the part of the story where it's like, okay, you've passed the initial tests of, like, ground combat, now we're moving you into space. Which still plays like ground combat, but don't tell anyone. Okay, time to see how much farther we can go.
Get ready.
Oh. Yeah, dash just goes on for so long. Oh my god. Oh, fuck. That really did not, oh, shit. Yeah. Like I said, as well, when I was showing him off in, the arcade version, Afarm's a beast in Melee.
Hmm. Can you do any kind of, like... If you're partway through a dash, can you quickly dash in the opposite direction?
Opposite as in, like... as in if we were, like, both going in, like, back directions at the same time?
Like, yeah, quickly go from dashing left to right. I've got memories of doing that, but it's been a while.
Yeah, the idea is that, like, the way you cancel out of dashes is that, like, whatever direction you're moving in, like I'm doing right now, you then press the stick in the opposite direction and the dash button again to cancel it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how... Okay, okay, just keep going. I just want, like, another good opportunity to get off, like, the heart beam. Ah, fucking terrain. Yeah, Ben is correct. Yeah, like, you can dash cancel, which is, yeah, what I was demonstrating. Which is different from Watari dashing in the sequel, where that is literally a mid-direction change to your dash. without actually coming to a stop. You know? And is simultaneously, like, one of, like, the big reasons why Oratorio Tangram is, like, the most popular Virtualon game, especially in a competitive sense. Because it is so fast and twitchy when you know how all the systems work. Okay, come on. Come on. Oh. Come on, I'll get you, you bastard. Oh. Yeah, that's actually something I should be doing when I'm, like, in hyper mode is do the startup for, like, the heart beam as they are getting up. That's how it should be done.
The stages are really quite simple. You know, there's hardly anything there, but it's still enough to be interesting.
Yeah.
With all the movement options you've got.
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna call it for that, just because, I mean, like, there's no way in hell I'll be able to, like, reach the boss, even with all of, like, these retries. But we can, let me plug in another controller. We'll start messing around with, like, what's possible. With what's possible in the, two-player mode. Because I want to test something to see if this is the case, because I have heard a thing that felt so much like a rumor that apparently for this Saturn port, even despite making a twin-stick peripheral for the system, there's apparently an idea that, like, there's some, like, forced input latency on twin-stick users.
Huh.
But it's like, I've only ever played this, like, this version of the game in single player, where, you know, it's just you against, like, the AI, and it never really felt like it. Like, I felt if there was any sort of latency, it was more a result of the fact this game runs at half the frame rate. Yeah, I'll play Belgor. But I'm wondering if, like, that actually is a thing that happens only in Versus if, you know, if you have, like, a second player who's only using a Saturn pad.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, like, with how chunky the performance is already in single player.
Get ready.
I'm just thinking moving the big sticks around just physically takes more time than pressing on a D-pad.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's I don't know. Like, I'm not feeling that much difference. I think it feels about the same as it does in the arcade game. I don't know. Maybe it is just more because I feel like where I read that made it seem like it's an extra thing on top of the Saturn performance being not as strong as the arcade hardware. Maybe it is just the hardware difference. Because, I mean, like, I think even in the playing that PS3 version of, like, that port of the arcade ROM, I think was still just a bit snappier. But it's like, I think even then with the with, like, the Saturn controls, like, using, like, the Saturn pad itself, it's definitely very weird to control it that way, but I think it's ultimately, like, better than trying to play Oratorio Tangram with a Dreamcast controller. Because at least here, you have just the D-pad and 8 buttons, which as far as digital inputs go, is about equal with what you could get in on a twin stick. Because here it's like, D-pad just moves in strafes, which actually that does feel a bit snappier than with the sticks. Fuck, it's like very slight though, but maybe there is some merit to that. But L and R rotate, which, you know, that seems like standard thing you would do for, like, a console mecha game of the era. B is dash. Y is center weapon. A is left weapon. C is right weapon. And both X and Z are jump because, again, like, most Saturn games, despite all these buttons, they always seem to, like, duplicate a function across 2 buttons because they can't think of one function that's unique for every single weapon. It's weird. Yeah, so... Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
So, is your movement always relative to the opponent?
Yeah. Well, technically, it's like your movement is relative most evidently when you're jumping. Funny enough. Anyway, there we go. But otherwise, despite having like the lock-on reticule, it's like they can move off of your screen, you know, and like, and even during that time, your movement is relative to like the screen-facing direction and not your opponent. It only becomes that way, like when you're airborne, when you're dashing, and like shooting and dashing at the same time, you know.
Right. So when you jump, you automatically face the opponent. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's basically something that I'm pretty sure, like, that naturally had to have come out, like, during the development of this game, basically out of necessity. Because otherwise, like, pushing the stick in opposite directions vertically to rotate left and right is too slow for, like, practical play. Assume the sticks also have more movement needed before it would toggle the directional context versus the D-pad, so it might be a bit of an odd bias. That could explain it, yeah. Considering, like, the whole point of, like, the sticks is, like, I mean, not... aside from the obvious where it's supposed to kind of give you that power fantasy of, like, it's like I'm in the cockpit of a mecha, but I think because it's like moving 2 D-pads at once. And I think it's just because of how they programmed the game to maybe, like, look for extra confirmation when playing in the arcade to know that, okay, you really want to move to the right, that you're pushing both sticks in that direction, then yeah, we'll register that as such. Alright, let's give Dorcas a shot, which is like the last of the units, I believe, that we need to show off. And we'll see how far we get in this second run of arcade mode, and I think we can call it for this demonstration. Jesus, so much explosions. And fire. Yeah, I think, like, I definitely might prefer, like, this type of heavy unit a bit more than Raiden. Even though, like, his twin laser cannons are pretty great. But, like, yeah, just freaking phalanx, man. Look at that. Look at that, not even any damage. Dork ass is certainly
Just
more mobile. Yeah.
Chunky boy.
He's a chunky boy, and that's why we love him. He's perfect in every way.
Get ready.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm definitely in appreciation of using Virtuaroids where, like, some of their weapon attacks are designed to, like, shoot out in the spread. Although this is quite curious because in the case of the Fireball, which is the right weapon, like, you get the 3-shot spread if you're like dashing to the left, but if you're dashing to the right, you just get like that more steady stream of like fire, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. Again, it's like another thing that factors into like the extra strategy that goes into dashing in this series. And that it's not just a matter of like getting the right dash trajectory to avoid attacks, but also making sure you can set things up for your ideal dash direction so you can use a particular version of your weapons. Anyway, mirror match.
I'm just appreciating the dithered alpha
Yeah.
of the explosions.
Yeah. Yeah, just putting those fake Saturn transparencies to good use.
Yeah.
Which technically the Saturn still could do some transparencies. It was actually the sort of thing where it was limited to like a sprite layer that like most devs didn't realize existed or knew how to use properly. It's a very weird thing.
That the Saturn doesn't actually have real 3D hardware. It's doing all of the polygons as scaled and rotated sprites.
Something like that. Like, it's part of the reason why, like, you would always hear that when it came to rendering 3D, that they didn't render it, like, in tries for polygons or anything like that. They rendered in quads.
Right,
and I imagine that might have been to, like, better lend itself to, I guess, the sprite theory. You know, if they were just loading in a bunch of, like, different sprites of, like, with, like, square file dimensions and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of thing where, funny enough, if you mess around with, like, Saturn emulators that exist today, like, at least one of them I know lets you do things like turn off each individual, like, video processing layer so you can actually see how they're stacking the different effects.
Nice.
Like it's really cool. It actually kind of makes you realize as well kind of how stuff like Panzer Dragoon's able to look as impressive as it is. Like, you know how, like, the first stage of Panzer Dragoon starts where you're, like, flying above the water? That's basically, like, a single, like, sprite stretched and being warped entirely on a very specific exclusive, like, layer. Like, VDP2, I think it's called.
Huh.
And I think VDP2 is also partly responsible for, like, how some developers were able to make, like, actual, like, more convincing transparencies, as opposed to, like, the usual checkerboarded look that you see everyone has. Like, like, Guardian Heroes actually comes to mind. One of the characters, Nicole, like, she has, like, a translucent cape. And that one, like, it doesn't have the checkerboard look to it, because it's entirely operating on that VDP2 layer.
The weapon names and their backgrounds right here actually are properly transparent, it looks like.
Okay. All right. Belgdor, what you got? We're fighting in Sonic's backyard. Yeah, Green Hills.
Green Hills. Get ready.
Okay, come on. Oh yeah, speaking of Green Hills and Sonic, it's real funny, because this kind of coincides to, like, another old Sega arcade-related thing that I learned about recently, where, like, apparently someone finally discovered that there actually were models of Sonic and Tails hidden inside the game, the arcade ROM for Fighting Vipers. Like, did you hear about this?
Yeah, I saw something about that.
Yeah, it was something where, like, I remember the story that, like, some programmers on the Fighting Vipers team, like, made Sonic and Tails in the engine just kind of as something they did while they were bored. But, like, I thought that was something where, like, it didn't make it onto the actual hardware itself was the idea. But apparently someone found out that it did because they were looking through the files to kind of figure out why the fuck did they make the boss character of the game only unlock if you had accumulated 15,000 versus plays on the machine. And then inputted, like, a specific, like, button combination within the first 2 seconds of, like, entering the character select screen. And it was like a whole Twitter thread explaining the whole thing that led to the end result of being like this whole process adds, like, an extra value to, like, the list of, like, I guess, like, hex characters that represent, like, each playable character. And then the extra that it adds right at the very end is Sonic and Tails.
Right.
And that's how Sonic the Fighters was born. The best Sonic the Hedgehog game, but don't tell anyone.
I won't.
Well, that's definitely a good use for, like, the fireball, is using that to actually clear out the Belvosbau's. I don't even know if I got that name right, because that feels like such a word salad. But getting rid of its projectiles, that's pretty useful.
Some of the names are a bit keyboard mashy.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Weird name aside, Triple B. You know, I'm just gonna call it that, Triple B, just for simplicity's sake. But like, just the nice thing about it is, you know, like part of what makes that unit unique is that it has orbital weapons. So if you wanted to get your fantasies of like controlling fin funnels in a video game, I guess you got that. Oh my god, yeah. This is kind of a mess, especially with like the frame rate just kind of like getting real chunky at times. Wow, jeez, yeah. Definitely. I mean, I would not blame anyone back in the day if this was their only way of playing Virtual On. Especially if they were fortunate enough to get a twin-stick controller.
Mm.
But there's certainly better options. I mean, again, this is the sort of thing where it's like, it's the best you could have hoped for. Like, not every 3D Sega arcade port to Saturn could be as good as Virtua Fighter 2.
Mm.
That's a hell of a port. And that right there is Cyber Troopers Virtual On. A seminal game, a classic. Literally, I would go as far as to say the most important game in the mecha game genre. Because this is the turning point for this series, you know, because it's like, first week, Assault Suits Valken, you know, awesome game, beloved by people that are fond of the Super Nintendo and kind of the lesser-known titles, you know? People that don't just rest on their laurels of being like, ah yes, Nintendo and Square Enix games, and nothing else. Mm. Oh, and I guess Capcom games too. Street Fighter 2 was a big deal on there. But like, and then of course last week we had Ranger X, which was a very neat, slightly esoteric, but very creative late-era Genesis Mega Drive title. But this is where things were moving properly into the third dimension, and even though, like, over in the West we already had Mech Warrior, this was, like, super important as far as, I think, like, either consciously or subconsciously influencing any Japanese developer that went on to make mecha games to take some amount of lessons from what Sega did with Virtual On. And yeah, it's a good point, like, Ben brings up, like, this was one of the very few mecha fighting games that ever got released outside Japan, at least until Sega decided we were no longer worthy of it. Yeah, because, yeah, that's a good point. It's like, Gundam Versus is like a whole line of like popular arcade games involving Gundam and are really good, but God forbid you ever got to experience most of those. So
also a very different aesthetic to the Mech Warriors and so on.
Very much more obvious that like this is anime inspired to the point where I'm pretty sure this like was, I want to say the Virtuaroids were like designed by like an actual like somewhat well-known mecha designer like from anime. I almost want to say it was Kunio Okawura, but like I don't think it was that. I don't think it was possible that it could have been like the designer of the mobile suits in Gundam. Oh, hold on. You know, fuck it. I'm looking it up quickly.
Hajime Katoki.
That's what it is. Thank you. Yeah, so it was something different, but it was like, yeah, it was a case where, I guess it's unsurprising because even in the 80s, like, regardless of media, I think there was a case of, I still conflate Virtualoid with Vroids. No, Bentai, a Vroid model's not a Virtualoid model. No one told me. But yeah, it's the sort of thing where, like, funny bit of history as well. It's like, again, kind of going back to, like, the influence of Gundam on not just anime, but, like, practically all mecha-related media in and even coming, like, mostly in Japan. Just the idea that, like, a mecha designer can be, like, a legitimate job role that has prestige, you know, when working in the genre that requires it. You know, if you get Okawura on there, like, you know, that's serious fucking business. And likewise as well, if you get, like, you know, my personal favorite, Shoji Kawamori. of Macross fame.
Mm.
Which, yeah, unsurprisingly, much like Gundam, there are also Macross games, and we'll be showing off quite a few of those later in the year. You're going to be on quite a few, if not all of them, I believe, since you're the one that expressed the most interest.
Yeah, I've enjoyed quite a lot of the Macross anime. I've
Mhm.
never tried the games, so
Yeah,
should be
you'll
interesting.
you'll see the moment where Macross games became pretty legit in probably like the release year of 2003. Funny enough, so like chronologically, with Virtualon being from 1995, still a ways off from that point. You still had to find the right developers to crack the code on how you make that work. And surprise, surprise, the first game that actually nailed it, funny enough, it was Sega. AM2 specifically. Which, I know, surprising. You would think they would have like used, I guess, whatever remnants of the Virtualon team. But no, I guess AM2 was busy because they had like some ties as well to, I think, the Aero Dancing series on Dreamcast. Because I think it like uses like the same engine, but just modifies it so that it makes like basically the dogfighting aspect of combat in Macross actually feel like dogfighting. And then they have mecha combat on top of that because you could transform. It's a whole thing.
We love mechs that transform.
Oh yeah. Especially when they're done by someone that is so incredibly talented as Kawamori. They could just make it all the designs and the mechanisms so elegant and functional at the same time.
Mm.
So that's it. As for next week's game, which will be on, not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, because we'll be moving to my final co-commentator I have on the list, who's available for Saturdays. The game is Gungriffon, the Eurasian Conflict, a Saturn exclusive game, another 3D mecha classic, and, it's the sort of thing where you might be surprised thinking about it. People know what Armored Core is, and like that series started all the way in 97. It's the sort of thing where, as far as like Japanese 3D mecha games go, I feel like that's the one where people would almost think, first there was Virtualon, and then there was nothing, and then Armored Core came along. Gungriffon, meanwhile, is like someone taking a jab at doing a more realistic, but still fast-paced, like mecha sim. Like, it's, you're not going to get something that hits, like, the complexity that you can get with, like, a Mech Warrior game, like a Mech Warrior 2 or so, as it would be around the time. But it might be reminiscent, but you'll see that when we get to it about 10 days from now.
Yeah, I look forward to that episode.
Yeah. It'll be a fun one, and just as, like, an extra fun little bit of trivia behind it, the developers of Gungriffon? Game Arts. Makers of Grandia. Yeah, I bet you never thought you'd see that connection, did you?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. I mean, it's the sort of thing where like I had been like kind of struggling to kind of like find the right time or opportunity, or really just like getting over like my anxiety of like just talking to people out of the blue in DMs, but like wanting to like do these sort of collabs with you, with Neff, hopefully maybe like in the future, like with some of the other VTuber mutuals that we have, just because like I'm always off doing my own thing, going to the beat of my own drum, but this was something where I felt it was special enough to get more people involved. So I definitely appreciate it. And Millennium does some absolutely like great work. Like do check them out on Twitch. For real. You at the very least, I can at least say from my experience that you'll get like some pretty interesting like inspiration as far as like, if you want to do like any sort of streaming stuff on your end, might even get some ideas from them, because I certainly have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time on developing the technology and sort of weird stuff I do, and I need to get back to actual streaming games as well at some point.
Yeah, that too. But but also just kind of like showing just how that stuff gets put together is still really cool. All right. Now, without further ado, have a good rest of the day, everyone. Oh, Millie's camera tinkering for passenger view when she was doing future racing games was really neat. Yeah. Yeah, that and just like even like showing off like the futuristic game of racing games as well was rad. Seriously, for real.
I will get back to it. Yeah.
Millie's got some fantastic stuff. So, goodbye, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you next time for
Bye-bye.
Well, I'll be going back to regular streaming for the time being as I try and finish up Disaster Day of Crisis. But yeah, remember to check back in for Gungriffon on like the last Saturday of the month. Yep, you're welcome, Kaiser. Take care, everyone.
Game over.